Have you ever noticed that some camera upgrades don't just make your photos a little better, they completely change what you can do as a photographer? That's what this story is about. The cameras that didn't just add features, but opened up new possibilities. Now, they weren't always the first cameras to have these features. In fact, I very rarely have bought the first version of anything. I've always waited until the technology matured, until it was refined enough to actually make a difference. Like when the Nikon F5 first introduced multiple autofocus points. But then the F100 refined them. The points lit up red instead of black, and they were a lot better than the F5's darker autofocus points. Each of these cameras that I will talk about came along at the right time with a combination of features, capabilities, and maturity that made it a camera that I had to get. These are the cameras that changed what I could do, the ones that defined every step of my photographic journey. My first SLR was the Nikon F801s. When I got it, I didn't even know what aperture was, but it was the perfect camera to learn from and to learn with. It had a top shutter speed of 1/8,000th of a second, which was the fastest at the time. I could shoot multiple exposures, fire off 3.3 frames per second, seemed fast back then. It had manual, aperture, shutter priority, and program modes. All the flexibility I needed to experiment. It had matrix metering and spot metering, exposure compensation, and a 1/250th of a second flash sync speed, which was a big deal back then. I bought an external SB26 flash and learned how to use it on camera, bouncing it off ceilings, even off camera with an SC17 cord. I learned about front and rear curtain sync and balancing flash with daylight. It had everything I needed to grow. It had access to Nikon's full lens system. It was professional enough to teach me the craft, but not so expensive that I was afraid to use it. So what made me get it? Well, it wasn't an upgrade. It was the beginning. The Nikon F801s had everything I needed to learn photography properly. The next camera that made me have to upgrade was the F100. It made me feel like a professional. It was designed in the image of the F5, and when I added the battery grip for vertical shooting, it looked like one too. It has 5 autofocus points, 3 of them are cross type, and for me, that was a big selling point. I could select those focus points with the thumb pad on the back, and I still use cameras that way today. The twin command dials were another revelation, one for shutter speed and the other for aperture. It has custom settings menu, so I could select the back dial to change the aperture and the front dial for the shutter speed. I could download shooting data with Nikon's Photo Secretary software, a big deal before EXIF data was standard. It was a pro-level camera that made me feel like a pro, and I even bought 2 of them, and I still have them today. So why did I have to upgrade? The multiple focus points controlled by that thumb pad and those twin command dials completely changed how I worked with the camera. When the D200 came out, digital had finally reached a point where it made sense for me. I was still shooting film on the F100s and scanning the negatives with the CoolScan 5000 to get high quality digital files, but it took time and film still cost money. The D200 changed all of that. It had a 10.2 megapixel sensor, which was enough for serious prints. It had 11 autofocus points. It could shoot 5 frames a second, and it could let me change the ISO from shot to shot. That was a game changer. I could finally adjust to the light instantly instead of being locked into a film speed that I'd loaded. The image quality wasn't perfect, but it was good enough, and the freedom of shooting digitally, reviewing instantly, and not paying for film or scanning was transformative. It also meant that I had to learn to edit my own images, something that labs used to do. Digital photography wasn't just about capturing the image anymore, it was about processing too. So why did I have to upgrade? Well, the convenience of digital capture, instant feedback, variable ISO, and no film costs made it finally feel ready. The D200 with its 10.2 megapixel sensor was the camera that made me take advantage of the digital plunge. Now my next camera is one that I actually don't have with me. I've lent it to a friend. It's the Nikon D4S. It's my first full frame digital camera and my first from Nikon's professional line. I'd used the D3S before and I had access to that, and I knew how good the autofocus system was, but the D4S took that even further. It has 51 autofocus points, 15 of them cross-type, and you could configure the focused area to wide, group, or single. It can shoot 11 frames a second, which completely changed what I could do with action and sports. The ISO went up to 25,600, which was way beyond what my D200 could handle, and I could finally shoot in lighting situations that were impossible before. And it could shoot video. This was a whole new creative world for me. Even though I'd been shooting digital with the D200, I was still using film alongside it, mainly because my D200 APS-C sensor meant that my wide-angle lenses weren't truly wide anymore. My 17-35 was equivalent to a 26-52. The full-frame D4S changed that. My lenses worked as intended and I could make the full transition to digital, though I still shoot film today. At 16.2 megapixels, it wasn't about resolution, it was about reliability. The camera just did not miss. So why did I have to upgrade? That full frame sensor and being able to capture video. The D4S was my first truly professional digital camera, and it made me a capable professional. The final camera in my photography evolution is the Nikon Z9. It was a huge leap forward in every way: resolution, speed, and autofocus. The 45 megapixel sensor was nearly 3 times what the D4S offered, and it could shoot 30 frames per second at full resolution or 120 frames per second at 10 megapixels. 10 megapixels is what my D200 had. But what truly changed the way I worked was the focus coverage. For the first time, autofocus points covered the entire frame, not just the center, and that was revolutionary. I saw how well it worked with the Z7 II, which I borrowed for a week, and I was sold. I waited for the Z9, and when it arrived, it was everything that I hoped for. It has eye detection autofocus, silent shooting, live viewfinder, a variable tilt screen, a 1/32,000th of a second top shutter speed. With the FTZ2 adapter, I could use all of my F-mount lenses, so I wasn't abandoning my system. And the results? The number of in-focus shots I captured at fast sporting events increased dramatically. The Z9 changed what I could do as a photographer. So why did I have to upgrade? 493 autofocus points across the full frame, eye detection autofocus, 30 frames a second, tilt screen, silent shutter. Those were the key things for me. The Z9 took everything I'd learned and gave me the tools to push it further. So every time a new feature comes out, there's a wave of photographers selling everything and switching brands, Nikon to Sony, Sony to Canon, then back again when the next big thing arrives, and I've never done that. Not because I'm loyal to a logo, but because I know how this cycle works. New features are exciting, but the first versions are rarely perfect. They always get refined, improved, and eventually they come out to the system I'm already using in that refined form. I was making great photos with my cameras yesterday. I don't suddenly need to switch systems tomorrow. I can be patient. That doesn't mean I only shoot Nikon. I use Fujifilm, Mamiya, Hasselblad, Rolleiflex, and Polaroid. Each offers me something different. A different format, a different sensor or film type, a different way of seeing. So it's not about brands, it's about intent. If another camera helps me do something different, or if I find something interesting about a camera, I'll try it out. But I don't need to start over every time something shiny comes along. Patience has always paid off, not just in saving money, but in building a system that feels like an extension of how I see and one that helps me to see differently. The next big leap that I'm watching for is a global shutter. Currently, Nikon doesn't have one yet, but when it does, it will allow flash sync at any speed, something that could completely change what I can do. Now, I'm not rushing out to get it. The moment it comes out, like every major upgrade before, I'll wait until it's refined and ready to truly make a difference. Patience has always paid off, and this will be no different. Each of these cameras represented a truly not just an upgrade. The F801s gave me the foundation to learn. The F100 made autofocus fast, precise, and intuitive. The D200 brought digital to life for me. Finally ready with that 10.2 megapixel sensor. The D4S opened the door to full frame and video. And the Z9, that was the all-in-one: speed, accuracy, resolution, silence, everything I could want. Each one earned its place not by being new, but by being refined, by getting the details right, the features that made me have to upgrade. So what do you think? What were the cameras that made you feel like you had to upgrade? Not just because they were new, but because they got something exactly right. And if you've ever switched brands, did it change how you shoot or just what you shot with? If you have any questions or thoughts, please share them in the comments below. If you like the content I'm creating, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much.